I want to tell you of the time I was in Colombo and I suddenly got an order that I'd got 4 weeks leave in England, which really meant 3 months because the ship took 4 weeks to get home. I got 4 weeks in England and 4 weeks to get back. And I was a sergeant at the time, and sergeants down to private soldiers, they have 2 pay books, part 1 and part 2. And part 2 pay book, it has all that has happened to you written down in it. And I'm going to inoculations and vaccinations. I'd refused them all. I had to go down and report to the MO that I was going on leave, and he looked at it. Well, he said, you can't go. Well, he said, if you do go, they'll put you in quarantine. I said, what do you mean? Well, he said, you had none of these things. He said, you could take the disease back into the country. He said, you'll go in quarantine. I said, how long does that last for? He said, a month. I said, I've only got a month's leave. He said, well, that's it. You'll spend it in quarantine. I said, what's the answer? He said, you left with a lot. What is it now? All at once. And he did. He bared my arm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like a single sewing machine had been on my arm. Anyway, I had it all done. I came home on the Alcantara. There was about 2,000 troops aboard, I suppose. And for the first time we came through the Mediterranean. It had been closed most of the war, but the war was going in our favour and the Mediterranean was open, so we went through the Red Sea. Now the Alcantara was a flat-bottomed boat, there was no keel. It had been made for the River Plate in South America, which is a very narrow river. And we hit a storm. Normally the Red Sea is very calm. I've been through several times. But this time we really hit a storm. And the troops had had spaghetti for tea. Well, everyone was sick. And you saw nothing like it in your life. And the sailors, they turned the sea hoses on, sea salt water, and not only sprayed the decks, they sprayed the troops who were lying about all over the deck as well. Anyway, we eventually arrived in Liverpool. I went down to my parents in Nottingham, and then a fellow soldier of mine named Redpath, he'd asked me to go and see his grandmother while I was on leave up in Glasgow. So after I'd been home about a fortnight, I took a train, I went up to Glasgow, Pollock Shores, and I met his grandmother and I stayed with him for 3 nights. And on the second morning I was there, she did a letter from the transport people. Oh, she said, that is a relief. She was nearly 90 and very frail, charming old lady, and she said, oh, that relieves me. She said, I wrote to them, she said, it's been on my conscience for years. She said, I had a tram ride in 1894, a horse tram car ride, and I never paid for it. So she said, I wrote to them, I've written to them to clear my conscience, and this is the letter they've sent back. And she showed it me, and he said, dear madam, thank you for your letter on such and such a day. We have worked out the fare of the journey you took in 1894 would have been 2pence. But the accumulated interest from then until now would be another 9pence. So if you send a postal order for a shilling, you could clear your conscience. Anyway, I went back to Nottingham, and then I went down to visit some friends in London. And I got to Marylebone Station, and the bombing of London was on, that's right. The doodle bugs, what they call the doodle bugs, were coming over. And I called them for a coffee at Marylebone Station. I sat at a table, and there was a man and his wife sitting there. And I was just about to lift this cup when there was a most almighty explosion, shook the whole of the place. I was shaking myself. But the two that were sitting there, they didn't seem to take any notice at all. So I said, excuse me, what was that? It must have seemed strange to them, a soldier asking them. I said, I've been out of England most of the war, and I'm just on leave from Colombo. Oh, I said, well, he said, that'll be a doodle bug. I said, it won't be far from here. I said, but you and your lady didn't move at all. He said, we've got used to it. We've got so used to it. I said, look, I'm shaking. Oh, it's a bit. We shall miss it when it's finished.